Hi there. I recently got a hold of the game Confrontation, which is a game developed by a company called Cyanide Studios, and it's published by the company Focus. The game is centered around party-based combat, and in this video I would like to give you my impression of it so far. I have played around 1 hour of the game, and my impressions will naturally be based on that hour alone. The first thing I noticed about the game was that the visuals were kind of shitty, to be honest, and were kind of boring and uninspired. But hey, who cares about the visuals? Let's talk about the party-based combat. So you got 4 characters in your party. They have 6 skills each, and some of them can change between melee weapons and ranged weapons, which isn't a whole lot, to be honest. There are plenty of other games not entirely focused around party-based combat, which has more skills and more options available. Not to mention that the skills available was a bit boring, to be honest. A lot of different buffs and some pretty basic attacks. But to be fair, this was only the first 4 characters in the game, so I would imagine that it would get a bit better later on. Another thing that bugged me about the game was how bare-bone the squad development and the management was. There is no inventory at all, and the impact you have on your character's skills and attributes is limited, to say the least, and quite boring. Another strange thing about the characters are that you aren't allowed to create your own party. You are forced to play as the already existing characters, which would make sense if the game had some story it was trying to tell and it used dialogue and voice acting and so on. But the game doesn't, and the characters lack all kind of dialogues and voice acting and everything related to a persona. And that's why I think it's odd that the game doesn't let you create your own party, since it would be an easy way to get the player to care about the characters without having to employ voice actors or hire a writer and so on. Not to mention adding a new layer of depth to the game, since the player can tailor its own party and its own playstyle. But all of this have a really big impact on the game itself, since you lose that motivation to gain a new item or reach a new level so you can unlock that cool skill. And all of that isn't really there, and it makes the encounters that isn't really all that challenging quite tedious and boring, since you don't have any reward waiting for you. And since your characters regenerates completely between each fight, it means that fighting the same type of enemies over and over again becomes tedious, since there isn't any challenge in it, and since you don't get any reward for doing it. Now, I can't really say anything about the depth of the game, if the strategy is complex or not later on in the game, since I only have played 1 hour of it. But I can say that so far I have seen nothing that indicates that being the case. And the game doesn't really seem to have anything else besides the party-based combat. The visuals are pretty boring, the story is told through cutscenes between missions, and therefore I think it's kind of sad that the party-based combat doesn't appear to be stronger. I'm not saying it's bad or terrible. I'm just saying it seems pretty basic, which is kind of unforgivable, to be honest, since this game really doesn't have anything else. And from the time I have spent with the game, I get the feeling that games like Neverwinter Nights or Dragon Age or those types of games have perhaps even a stronger party-based combat. That's not even talking about older games like Icewind Dales and so on. And a lot of those games have a lot more elements to them. It doesn't really only rely on the party-based combat. It's only a set piece. And that's why I wouldn't really recommend this game from my time with it, at least. It might get a lot better later on. How could I know? But I got fed up with it after 1 hour and I uninstalled it. I believe the game would benefit greatly from having a proper inventory and a more fleshed out character development, like skills and attributes and everything related to that. The game would also benefit from having a lot more skills available and more interesting enemies. But to be fair, I can't really say anything about that 1 hour into the game. But so far, I wasn't impressed with them either. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you are going to have a game based entirely around party-based combat, then the combat needs to be strong and the party and their development needs to be strong. And it really isn't in this game, at least so far. And I also believe that giving the player the option to create their own party would really benefit the game. And that is my impression of the game after the first couple of missions in it. And that's that. Thanks for listening. I guess you could say that the game didn't confront its game design.